This is a criminally underrated gem from the 2000s. Let's do it. I actually did a full in-depth breakdown of this movie and its sequel in my podcast this week, so this is just a quick version. Collector opens up with this couple coming home and they find their power out and they find this random chest in the middle of their bedroom. When they go to investigate, the husband opens it and looks absolutely shocked and appalled, but before he can even process it, a hand comes up behind him and grabs him. And then we cut to the opening credits. The next scene, we're at a different house in the daytime, and we meet our main character, Arin, who is the handyman for the family who lives in this house. Now, they also have some crew around, there's construction going on, and there's also an exterminator there. So the family consists of the mom and dad, Michael and Victoria, and the two daughters, Hannah, who's the younger one, and Jill, who's a teenager. Arin tells Michael that his own daughter is about Hannah's age. Arin goes to see his daughter at a bowling alley and then sees his wife, who asks him if he has the money yet. And he says he doesn't have all of it, and she starts panicking and is like, well, I gave money to loan sharks and they want it when they want it. Like, we have to get out of town. And Arin's like, okay, chill out. Like, they're going to follow you. I'm going to get the money by midnight tonight. So then he goes to talk to this guy who's like, okay, you've been casing this house for months. Like, you know where the stone is. Turns out Michael is a jewelry broker and has this like really expensive stone hidden in a safe, and Arin now knows where that safe is. So he breaks into the house in the middle of the night, but very quickly finds out that he picked the wrong motherfucking night. As he's there trying to crack the safe, he sees the father, Michael, come up all bloody. And he looks at Arin and is like, why are you doing this to us, assuming it's him, because why the fuck would he be in their house in the middle of the night? Michael grabs a golf club to try to defend himself, but when he does that, it triggers a trap that then drags him off a staircase. We see this masked figure dragging Michael into the basement. We also learn that the house is completely jimmy-rigged, Home Alone times 1,000. Arin goes to call the cops, but there's a needle in the phone. The windows are all boarded up. The chandelier has like knives hanging from it. There's tripwires everywhere. There's extra locks on all the doors, so escape is just like completely impossible. So Arin goes to the basement where he finds Michael tied up and all bloody, and he tells Arin that his wife is tied up in the next room. They don't know where Hannah is, and Jill was out, so she wasn't home for this whole thing. So he goes into the next room and finds Victoria tied up in a bathtub, and she's like begging him to go find Hannah. So Arin's like, okay, I can do that, but I'm going to need you to scream to create a distraction so the killer comes down here. Meanwhile, Michael had also told Arin that he has a gun hidden in his safe and gave him the combination to the safe that Arin was here to break into in the first place. So Victoria screams, it works, and Arin makes it upstairs. He gets into the safe, gets the gun and the stone, but when he goes to get the bullets for the gun, they're gone. The collector already got to them first. And now he hears banging coming from a closet and he thinks that it's Hannah. But it's not Hannah, it's Larry, the guy from the beginning, now bloodied and mutilated inside the chest. He tells Arin that the guy who took them is the collector. He collects people, and if he doesn't like you, he's going to kill you, but if he likes you, he takes you. And he always takes one. So Arin goes back to the basement to Michael and Victoria, where he finds Michael completely disemboweled and like dead. So he unties Victoria and is like, okay, like keep your eyes on my back when we go through this next room, like don't look up. But of course she looks up and sees the corpse of her husband and panics and run upstairs, where she meets the collector at the top of the stairs, who proceeds to stab her. Arin now runs back upstairs where he hears a car approaching outside, and he looks out to see Jill and her boyfriend coming home. So they come in and the collector is watching them as they're like making out in the kitchen. Eventually they spot him and he attacks them. The boyfriend falls into this room of all bear traps and is immediately offed. And then he ties Jill up. But then Arin creates a distraction and sets an alarm upstairs, so the collector hears it leaves Jill and goes upstairs. Arin comes downstairs and unties Jill, but she panics and walks directly into a trap and dies. Before the collector tied her up, though, she managed to call 911 and drop the phone. Arin at this point has managed to get the boards off one of the windows and escapes, jumps off the roof and flees. He's out. But then he turns around and sees Hannah in the window and decides he can't leave her, so he goes back in. He and Hannah set a trap, so he's behind a fish tank and she's behind this TV like this. The collector goes to walk in and they drop the TV and the tank at the same time, but he pushes Larry in and Larry gets electrocuted and dies. Then the collector knocks out Arin and drags him to the basement, where he wakes up bound. Not just bound, he's literally connected to the wall and to the ceiling by fish hooks through his skin. And the collector starts torturing him. And he's only distracted when he sees a cop car pulling up, because that 911 call that Jill made went through and they traced the call. So the collector goes outside and comes face to face with this cop, and as this cop has his weapon to him, he gets attacked by the collector's dog and his throat is bitten out and he dies. But not before he was able to call for backup. The collector then goes back inside with his dog and tries to sick them after Hannah and Arin. But they manage to get out and they run to the road where they see cop cars coming, so Arin gets in the road to try to stop them and he is hit by a police car. But they stop, they find Hannah, they put her in the cop car, and now they put Arin on a stretcher and they're about to put him in the ambulance. Arin's talking to one of the cops and he managed to rip the collector's mask off at some point. We never saw his face, but Arin did. And Arin recognized him as one of the exterminators that was at the house. So he's telling this to the cops, and the cops are like, okay, we're going to get the address of the extermination company. And as Arin's being taken to the hospital, he pulls the stone out of his pocket. He's had it there the whole time and he thinks he's made it. Until the ambulance is promptly hit by a car and flips over. The Collector enters the ambulance and kills everybody except for Arkin, who he then takes. And the last shot is of him putting Arkin in the chest, him putting the chest in his van, and driving away.